Hello, First Christian Church of Pomona. It is Courtney Armento coming to you from University Church in Chicago with a reflection on Luke 19:29 through 40. Jesus drew near to Bethany at the mountain called Olivet, and he sent two of his disciples to get a colt for him. And as he rode it, the whole multitude of the disciples began to rejoice and praise God with a loud voice for all the mighty works they had seen, saying, "Blessed is the King who comes in the name of the Lord, peace in heaven and glory in the highest." And some of the Pharisees called to him from the crowd, "Teacher, rebuke your disciples." But he answered and said to them, "I tell you that if these should keep silent, the rocks would immediately cry out." What struck me in this passage is the injustice of oppression, silencing the marginalized. The rocks cry out for the injustice in the world. Everything with breath ought to cry out. What pain must be present for a rock to shed tears? God have mercy on us. The way we other cultures, religions, gender expressions, and sexual expressions, the hurt and harm happening on our watch, it's reflective for some of the tragic gap that Parker Palmer elucidates. The insight at the heart of nonviolence is that we live in a tragic gap. A gap between the way things are and the way we know they might be. It is a gap that never has been and never will be closed. If we want to live nonviolent lives, we must learn to stand in the tragic gap, faithfully holding the tension between reality and possibility. What does radical hospitality look like? It looks like Jesus is here now, the great equalizer, sitting with the Samaritan woman. How is it that we are still the folks walking on the other side of the road when the unlikeliest one stops to care? How are we those that walk by the tents without a care? Don't just see and keep it moving. Stop. Don't just hear. Compassionately listen. Don't cause harm. If in error you do, seek to unharm and heal 1,000 tiny cuts. See that your neighbor is just another part of you. The rocks cry out when in Kenya a Springer Spaniel has to be trained to detect weapons of potential poachers in an effort to protect the last 2 remaining northern white rhinos. The rocks cry out for babies and children separated from their parents at borders and remanded to detention centers. The rocks cry out for the injustice of our privatized industrial jail systems, where sexual and physical abuse, murder, and misery abound. God sees you, Alabama. The rocks cry out because we have to remind police officers and the justice system that Black lives matter. The rocks cry out when its tears freeze into snow that falls in Pasadena and Vegas, and wildfires erase a whole place. The rocks cry out for the injustice of the industrial farm system. The earth cries, nature cries, rocks cry out. What pain must be present for a rock to shed tears? God cries with us and the rocks over domestic violence, LGBTQ exclusion and harm, hateful massacres rooted in xenophobia in houses of worship, and the further endangering of endangered species, endangered at our hands. In a world at war, peace may be our dream, but the grim realities of greed, fear, hatred, and doomsday weaponry quickly turn that dream into a delusion. Hear the cry of the rocks.